Welcome, everybody, to the next webcast of the World Metal Congress. It's an absolute pleasure to be joined by Lena Khatib, a co-founder of World Metal Congress and a longtime co-conspirator in what World Metal Congress has become. And Lena, it's such a pleasure to be doing this with you because we've been talking about things like this for so long, long before World Metal Congress came together. And our guests today, I think, are so emblematic of what this whole concept is all about. So tell us a little bit about Sahil and Jayant.
Well, I'm so excited. We are hosting Sahil Makhija, who is the man known as Demonstealer. He's from India. I would say he is the pioneer of Indian metal globally. His band, Demonic Resurrection, has been in existence for 20 years, and he's done a number of other side projects as well. He has an EP coming out in December, so I can't think of a better time really to be hosting someone like that to tell us all about metal in India.
Indeed. And of course, we're going to be joined by Jayant as well, from Bloodywood, who I guess in some sense, they're like the full expression of that scene, because, they had almost like an explosive introduction, to the world of metal, where you could say, I hate the term YouTube sensation, but there is definitely something about where the social media is at that I think aided their success, and so in a way we have two bookends of this incredible story of metal in India. So without further ado, we're going to invite them aboard. Sahil and Jayant, welcome to World Metal Congress. Before anything else, where are you guys zooming in from today?
I am zooming in from Delhi, New Delhi, India.
And I'm zooming in from Mumbai, India as well, or better known as Bombay.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed. Well, yeah, gosh, I've got to say that, immediately my mind is cast back to memories of the first time I went to Mumbai, Sahil, when I met you for the very first time. And, I guess like a lot of people, this is 2009, I was surprised to discover the breadth and the energy of the metal scene in India, and I think I was getting a bit philosophical over a bottle of Old Monk as well, because it completely blew my mind, So I wondered if we could cast our minds back a little further, down, the corridors of history, back to, I guess, around 2000 when your band first formed. What was the metal scene like in India then? Pre-social media, pre-YouTube, everything. Was it big? Was it tiny? Were you standing on your own? I mean, take us back to that time.
For starters, when I sort of got into the scene, the bands that were around were more or less cover bands. And I guess that's also got to do a bit with the fact that no major metal band had toured India. I mean, we'd had Deep Purple and Jethro Tull, but I mean, that's about as heavy as it had gotten. There had never been bands like Metallica, Iron Maiden, or any of the death metal or black metal bands coming through to India. So perhaps to fill the void in there, local bands were playing covers. So in terms of the music that was being created, there was very little original music being written. Even if a band did write their own songs, it would be apologetically thrown into a cover set of like 15 tracks. So that was one of the biggest differences back then, was the music being played was mostly covers. In terms of festivals, there was maybe 1 or 2 college festivals per city. And when I say city, I'm only talking about the major metropolitan cities in India at that time. So that's Delhi, Bangalore, Bombay, Calcutta, and Hyderabad, maybe Shillong, Guwahati. But and even it's true to some extent today, like metal is very prominent in these major cities as compared to the other parts of the country. So a lack of opportunity to perform, venues were few and far between. The infrastructure was terrible in terms of the quality of musical instruments available, of PA equipment. I guess there wasn't much money to be made, so there were hardly any promoters, and it was a niche, small scene, not doing much, but it was evolving, and of course, while a lot hasn't changed, a lot of it has changed. But yeah, that was the scene in a nutshell, back then.
Well, I guess this is a thing that's fascinating because, of course, in 2020, there's so much that's taken for granted about discovering music and, finding out new things just because the way the internet works. But, I'm just wondering, I mean, what were the record shops like? Was there a tape trading scene? I mean, how did you stumble onto this world?
Okay, so yes, there was I won't say a tape trading scene because the scene was very small, but yes, people did exchange music. Record stores, they were around. They would have a small section where you would get Iron Maiden, Metallica, maybe a Napalm Death CD. Basically anything that was kind of distributed through the bigger record labels like EMI or Sony or Universal, those records would be available in India. So I was just given a tape of Iron Maiden by a friend, some Metallica, and that's how I got into it. And the time that I actually got into metal was the time the internet had just sort of gotten into India. I was, just finishing, I guess what in the West is called high school maybe, or junior high. Basically, we call it 10th grade here. And the internet had just come in. So immediately through, I guess, torrent websites, we were all able to access, MP3s, except that it took like 14 hours to download one song as compared to today where it's, 14 seconds. But yeah, it was there. So it was pre-social media, but it wasn't pre-internet. I guess before that, yeah, you had to trade tapes with people. Also, there would be these audio video shops. They would sell like hi-fi systems and stuff, and they would always like burn you. I mean, well, they would sell you like cassettes, so you could go to them with a track list of songs you had heard on television or radio or something, and they would like make a mixtape for you and give it to you. So I actually remember that's how my mom used to get a lot of these mixtapes where I heard a lot of music.
Wow. Well, a completely, different world, from now, in so many ways. But I guess, as they say, from small acorns, because of course now, it seems that, the scene is so much larger, Sahil. And, a few years ago, discovered Bloodywood, and, Jayant, your band it's truly the product of the internet age, so to speak.
Yeah.
For people that aren't familiar with it, I mean, could you walk us through a little bit of that history?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I started off with the Cosmic Truth back in 2014. Like, that was my first band ever. I joined a band. It's a metal band. We made a really bad demo of one of our songs. It was really bad. I heard it like, literally, I heard it like a few weeks back. And I was like, oh my God, we put this out on the internet. But we did that. And Karan, I was friends with Karan. We were acquaintances. We met a couple of times at his jam pad. We've got a mutual friend. We met it through him. After that, he basically heard that. He was like, I didn't like the song, but I like your vocals. So let's just do something. And that's how we started off. We started off with just for one song. We made a parody of a Bollywood song called Simbad the Sailor. We made it Simbad the Slayer. And we made a parody out of it. And that at that point, it was just for fun. We were doing it just for fun for that music video. But when we saw the reception and we did one more, we thought we should turn it and make it into a project. But now here's the difficult part. Who is going to listen to a project? India has a lot of metal bands, a lot of amazing metal bands. So our direction with all of that was to get the right eyeballs. And that's why we got into the whole thing of parodies and covers and metal renditions. And through with a lot of experimentation and the major thing I think that we did was to observe like all the comments, what people were saying, because internet actually made it a very small place. We were getting people from, I don't know, like from Madagascar commenting that, oh, I really liked it, or oh, this sucks. So from all over the world. So that helped us a lot to like gauge what the audience wants, because our plan later on was to release originals. Like we had a lot of instrumentals ready. We were like, oh no, we shouldn't use this on a cover. We'll keep it for an original. There's a lot of experimentation and observing what the people are saying, what the audience is saying, and what the reception is. We finally reached to the point where we were using Indian folk instruments into the songs just to try it out and just to see what the reaction would be. The good thing is the people they liked it. So I mean, then we went forward, and that's how we reached to the point where we were like, yeah, this is the point where we should release originals. Now we have enough eyeballs where we can present the world that we've got something here too in India. And that's how we went forward with it.
I mean, Jayant, that's very interesting, because basically it seems that you were using the internet as a kind of pull. You kind of having audience testing continuously, which is like a fast track, because bands in the age before social media did not have this access to reaction from people around the world. You know, you had to kind of play a gig, look at people in the audience to see how many of them are headbanging. When you were starting off with your various band projects, how did you know that people were potentially interested? Because obviously you were not just interested in playing India, you were interested in playing, you know, outside as well. What made you kind of convinced that it's a worthwhile endeavor?
Our journey actually started 20 years ago, you know, when we put out our first demo. We put it out, I think, on mp3.com. And we were also in the internet age. We weren't pre-internet. So we did get a lot of feedback online, comments, and we had fans writing to us from Brazil. In fact, yeah, there was particular interest from Brazil at that point. And I'm talking about when we were really bad, like we were a terrible band. You know, our first demo was quite bad. But, you know, there was interest from Brazil. There were people who were connecting to the music and the album in Brazil. And I do believe at some point he did release it as well. I just never found out about it till much later. But yeah, the music always like found people. And even at our gigs, I mean, you could tell by the 5 guys in front headbanging that somebody was into it, you know. I guess when we were starting out, it was a lot more hostile because we were doing something that had never been done before, which was playing only original material, you know. And to top it off, we weren't the best band and the songs weren't the best either. So it's kind of like this, you have to have that confidence to play it, even if it's not the best. Obviously, we were young and, you know, at that point, I was like, wow, this is the best stuff I've ever written. And, you know, screw you if you don't like it. You know, you probably got bad taste. You probably don't understand metal. Because that's the other thing I was dealing with. Because in India, like, the music is restricted to, and at that point, there was no separate metal scene. It was metal, rock, hip hop, everything was one. If you were not Bollywood, you were in the other scene. So we were playing to people who were into Pearl Jam and maybe into the Beatles and into like Led Zeppelin. And obviously, you know, when you're playing to those kind of people as well, anyone who doesn't like it basically just doesn't like metal, and, you know, they're fools. Dead to all the posers, like that's the vibe. So we just had confidence in our music, you know. And for us, again, we didn't start out with covers or trying to get, you know, like Jayant had the internet, they did a song, they got some good reception and they rolled with that as a very YouTuber kind of thing, which is like what I do with my cooking show. I see that the audience is taking this. I feel like doing that stuff, you know, that's sort of a natural motivation to you. Whereas here, it's like, we've written this music, we need to force it down people's throat, whether they like it or not. And that's why, you know, like our evolution probably took 10 years to get the album that really gave us some sort of footing on the global scene. So yeah, that's the kind of different way in, actually. You know, and
I'm sorry, go ahead, Lena. Sounds like
I was just gonna say, but you ended up getting a record deal with Candlelight Records.
Yes, we did in 2010. Yeah, I mean, that was like, there was such a long story to that because I had a record label by then. I was putting out bands like Behemoth and Dimmu. So, you know, I had access to Candlelight because they sent me a message saying, you know, can you release Isan's album? And I was like, as much as I love him as a musician, my bank balance just won't allow it. But, you know, why don't you guys see if you want to put out my material? And well, luckily they liked it. So, I mean, yeah. And before that, I think we had just around that time been told that we are playing Brutal Assault next year. Inferno was happening. So yeah, we kind of felt that, yes, we've got something going with this album of ours.
Indeed. Well, I guess, picking up on that thread, one of the things I was struck by, when I traveled there for the first time and, really, I guess, had my eyes open to just what a vibrant, world there was for this music. The thing I was struck by was, a lot of people talk about DIY, in a lot of really abstract ways. But there it was just hitting me in the face, and DIY conjures a lot of different images, but it was one of cooperation, and it seemed like there were just so many people involved in what everyone else was doing. It was a sense of community that I couldn't help wonder, is this parallel with, like the Bay Area, thrashing in the 80s, whatever else, where, I mean, it before it was big, it was just a lot of people kind of doing the same things and just wanting to help each other, and obviously a little competitive, but does that vibe still kind of exist there 10 years later? Because for me, that was one of the most inspiring aspects of it all. There was the music, but there was also just feeling like you were witnessing something that was happening, and that was really exciting.
Yeah, I guess it's still there, but it's in I guess a different way now, because when you came to India, that was the time that it was still very much like all the different non-Bollywood music was all together, I think you had come around the time when NH7 Weekendo also was just about starting out, That was the time where everyone would band together because it's one festival and giving a stage to all genres of music, and everyone is equally important there at the point. That's not the case today because, the scene has evolved differently. The metal scene is its own separate entity. The rap scene has come and exploded across the country. Regional scenes where, local bands singing in their languages is another scene in itself. And yeah, like EDM is totally different. The singer-songwriter scene is different. So there's a huge fragmentation. Like, it's not like I could call up the guys who organized NH7 and say, hey, what's up? Like, I mean, I can only do that because I know them from 20 years, but otherwise they're all now, it's become more of an industry, the best way to put it, I guess. But I guess when it comes to metal, because there's no industry, it still has a DIY vibe to it. So it's the few promoters that are there. There'll be, I think, Shashank in Delhi from ex-Undying Ink, and there's Abbas from Godless in Hyderabad, and Salman from Bangalore Open Air in Bangalore. And, there are these bunch of people that sort of coordinate things now to make a sort of DIY scene happen for bands and stuff. But yeah, it's quite different from when you came.
And Jayant, I mean, talking about DIY, you guys started as DIY.
DIY.
In the best sense of the word. But the thing is, it struck me that you guys, Sahil and Jayant, come from obviously rather far geographical areas in India. I mean, we shouldn't forget how big India is and diverse. Yeah. And one thing that struck me about Bloodywood is how Punjabi the band is, in terms of influences and vibe. And I just thought, people who maybe are watching this may not know these nuances. Like, what's so different about the Punjab in terms of the influences? Even the way you use the dole, the music, the scene. Tell us more about that.
So the Punjabi element again, it was introduced because we wanted to explore the sound of the dole. We had it in the back of our heads that it would sound very good, but we used to, sort of do it as a joke. Like, oh, what are you going to do? Like, instead of drums, you're going to have dhol. And then we tried it and we were like, yeah, it does sound good. I mean, we can try something. But there's a lot of elements with Punjabi folk music that we still have to explore. Like, if you listen to Punjabi music in general, it's very, I'm going to say this for the lack of a good word, it's loud, it's big, it's huge. The sound's going to be huge. Not just because of the dhol, but with a lot of instruments and the vocal powers. I mean, Dalal Mehndi, the guy from the song Tunak Tunak Tun, he is probably one of the strongest voices I've ever heard in my life. And I mean, I don't think I'll ever be able to be that powerful in terms of just having the vocal range or this throw. But yeah, so we use that element from Punjabi music to our sound, where we were like, we also want to just go all out. I mean, we did songs like G Veere, but we also did songs like Machi Basad, which was going all ham. And that was because of the Punjabi sound element. We will, like in future, we're trying to explore further, like with Indian folk and not just Punjabi. But yeah, that's how it started. And it all started because of that song, Mundiya To Bach Ke Rahi, the Punjabi MC track. We were making
yeah, but that's Bhangra, which is different. And again, people
Bhangra is a dance
may not know the kind of nuances, the difference between Punjabi folk and Bhangra. Bhangra obviously is a British Asian kind of invention that made its way back to India.
No, Bhangra has been a dance form. That's the thing. The dancers we put in our videos, traditionally they're doing Bhangra. The Bhangra is a dance form. In Punjabi music, it's music. Bhangra is done over that music.
Yeah.
Me Bhangra is a fish.
But it works.
I used to do Bhangra back in school.
And one thing that struck me, I mean, talking about your experimentation with the Dul and Punjabi music and Bhangra beats, basically, you do what can be termed as new metal inspired music, but it really works because the beat is it blends seamlessly. Was that by accident or by design?
No, we just wanted to deliver out good grooves, that's it. And I mean, rap just flows with it. So, I mean, the combination of having rap lyrics with that new metal element with our Indian folk instruments, and then again, the singing in Hindi, it just blends. It comes out very good altogether. At least that's what we thought. Again, it started off as an experiment when we did Ari Ari. And then we heard it, and we didn't expect it's going to go that huge, but we were like, yeah, it sounds good. I was like, yeah, I thought we shouldn't do it, but I'm glad we did it. And then from there onwards, we knew what we have to do. And I mean, in Bloodywood, it's all about the music. It's all about the songs. Nobody's like, oh, I need to put a guitar solo so I look good. Or I'm not like, oh, I need to get like a larger section so I look good. It's all about what's best for the song. And I mean, the blend's been working for us. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly, found an audience, but, there's obviously a big difference between, connecting with an audience online and then actually touring, the music and bringing it over. And I mean, I guess, going back to Sahil's experience, talking about that era when you were working with Candlelight and, coming over to the West for the very first time, what were the first reactions to your music and playing? I mean, what were the challenges? Because of course it's a big deal to come all the way over, and obviously, getting onto any festival bill isn't easy by any measure, no matter where you're from.
Yeah, yeah, it's not easy at all. But I think we have been very fortunate. The first ever festival we played was Inferno Festival, the same year that we came over for the Metal Hammer Golden Gods. After that, we went to the Czech Republic. But the thing I realized is, at least at a festival, it doesn't really matter whether people have heard you or not, because they're there for the festival. And I mean, in most festivals, at least that first year, we had an audience irrespective, Inferno is a fairly small festival, 2,000 people. And the room was packed when we played. And I remember people in the front row singing. And when we were getting off the stage, people were like, one more song. So we were on cloud 9. Like, I don't even think we get that reception in Bombay when we play. In fact, Bombay has given us more bricks and stones and paper cups than an encore. So for us, that was something else. And even Brutal Assault, because it's a festival with 2 stages side by side, it's always packed. And we were playing to like a full house the first year. So that was something amazing for us. But of course, then as you do this more often, not every festival is the perfect experience, You then start to realize, it's a different ball game, because I think when we did Vakan, for example, we were on the third day when everyone is 3 days of drinking in, and we were, I think, early in the morning in between Arch Enemy and Sodom, stages that are a mile apart and overlapping set times, you know. So suddenly you realize that, oh, you know, we're playing to just 200 people, like as compared to bands that have played before us to like a tent full of people. And similarly, Sonosphere, we were announced very last minute. So, you know, people didn't even have us marked out on their schedule. So it's an experience that you take and you learn from. And, you know, I guess the last festival we did was Bloodstock, where we packed the tent. So, I mean, you just got to realize that, like, it takes a lot of work to reach the point where, say, Bloodywood is right now, where you are the draw. Till you reach that point, you are the small fish in the big sea. Just fingers crossed you get a good slot, and, you know, people from the festival are there to see you.
I mean, Sahil, I know what you mean. Although I did look at your Vakin, I wasn't there in 2014, but looking at the video, you had a bit more than 200 people in the audience. But I know what you mean. Whereas, again, I was watching your documentary, Jayant, and oh my God, talking about being on cloud 9, you were on cloud 19 at Vakin. How was that for you guys, and how did it come about?
So we had an offer from Dong Open Air already. That was before the tour 2018. We had an offer from Dong Open Air, and the guy who organizes the whole thing, Michael, he said, "You guys just fly out here to Germany. This is the whole deal, and this is what we're gonna do. We'll, you know, let's have you here at Dong Open Air." And we were like, "Bro, we're gonna lose money." And trust us, we have no money to lose. I mean, I remember I was doing a job and I hated every second of it. And I just was like, yeah, no, we can't do this. And that's when Karan was like, you know what, let's just try it out. Let's have a booking agency involved and see what happens. And then one day I come to the studio and Karan's sitting on the chair and he looks all serious and pissed and sad at the same time. And I ask him what happened. He's like, I'll tell you. And here's the thing. My anxiety and my panic attack, everything like happens to me in a second. Like as soon as I saw the face, I was like, something has happened. Either our channel is gone. And I kept asking him, I was like, Karan, what happened? I will have a heart attack or a nerve in my brain is going to burst and I'm going to die. And then he was like, let's go outside. Let's go to the balcony. We'll talk. And my hands are shaking. I light up a smoke because I was like, yeah, no, this is too much. Something bad has happened. And he's like, yeah, so Wacken Open Air just offered us to play. And at that same point, I was like, you're going to kill me, because I was jumping. But at the same time, my body was like, my heart was about to explode because I thought something bad has happened. But yeah, that's how I am not sure because of this whole thing. I'm not sure how exactly it happened, but we didn't go to them. They had an offer, I guess, for us that, I mean, come here, we've got this deal for you. If you want to play. And that's where I was like, no, this is happening. And that's how the whole tour around in Germany and England and France and Russia, all these shows, they came together and we were there. But it all happened so fast that sometimes I feel like it just didn't happen. It happened in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess this is the thing. I mean, you know, there are festivals and then there are festivals. I mean, I guess, you know, the symbolic value, you know, the significance of Wacken, I think, you know, it's almost like it's like a global bar to reach in some sense, you know. I mean, just, you know, going there is very much like you know, it's a wonderful experience because there are so many festivals, but, you know, in a way that can feel like a beating heart. And that's a huge achievement for any band, you know, to make. And, you know, and I wondered, though, if we could go back to almost like the proto-history of what we're talking about when we talk about global metal. And it's just a tiny thread. And I just wondered your thoughts. It's a theory. You know, Sahil, you're talking about, you know, people picking up on you in Brazil before anywhere else and whatever else. And, you know, anyone who knows their metal history, you know, will usually talk about like the ground zero of where heavy metal comes from, you know. And, you know, a lot of people talk about Black Sabbath, but when it comes to bands succeeding who are not from, you know, English speaking countries, you know, Sepultura seems to be the one that, consistently, comes up, and as the inspiration, not just for the music itself, but because of what they had to achieve and the hurdles that they had to go through in order to kind of reach their audience in that way. And so in a sense, their journey has been, the greatest, because of that. I wanted to, do you think that's, what do you think of that theory? That bands like that kind of help to pave the way, not because there is any similarity between the culture of Brazil and the many cultures that exist in India, but simply because it opened up the eyes of, metalheads, and music lovers to the fact that music can come from all over the world and still connect with you in that way.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, because I guess the industry as such exists in America, Europe, UK. That's the market for any metal band, I think. That's where you want to be. You want to be touring Europe. You want to be touring the UK. You want to be touring America. And obviously, there are so many bands already there. So people, don't even need to look beyond their backyard to find the best metal can offer. And then you have, metal in all the countries where it's not the industry, it's not as popular, and they all want to get, I guess, that global recognition. And a band like Sepultura being able to make it obviously inspires, gives hopes to like a million bands. I mean, just it's exactly what Bloodywood has done with their, I mean, I know that pretty much all the old guys in the Indian metal scene, like myself, are sitting and watching their documentary and going, man, that we want that. That is what we're all aspiring for, like that kind of recognition, that kind of fandom, that kind of visibility for our music. And yeah, and it does help that, there are bands from, I guess, the countries that are not necessarily known for metal making inroads into the main industry, so to speak. And people are like, okay, I can explore music from all over the world. I can find metal bands in Africa, in India, in Japan, in Russia, in any place. Like, metal is truly global. And I think a lot of people have played a very important role, apart from bands that have made it. Sam Dunn's Global Metal documentary truly opened up a lot of doors for people. Metal Hammer as well, doing the Golden God Awards, having the Global Metal Award. Your initiative here with the World Metal Congress. A lot of music conferences as well.
Sahil, speaking of inspiration, and this is something that I hope both of you can weigh in on, but I know from your music that back to the days of the Demon King, I think that was the first time you probably referenced it in a kind of main way. And then later on, of course, my favorite, Dashavatara. I mean, Krishna is one of my favorite tracks. And my goodness, when you focus on the lyrics, you're like, whoa, man. So tell us more about the Hindu mythology thing. Was it controversial in India?
Right. So this is a very layered question, actually, because, okay, I'll answer the first part of it. It made no real impact in India in terms of the subject matter beyond the metal community. Like nobody from outside the metal community came and said, hey, what are you doing? That not happened yet. And I don't think that will ever happen. Like, you could literally do anything and say anything, unless there is money to be made outside the metal community, nobody cares. The moment somebody from outside the community sees that there is money and eyeballs to be seen by protesting or calling this out, then you will find actual religious groups getting involved and threatening you, beheading you, etc., etc. That will all come if you are either super popular, like billions of people know you, or there's lots of money where you come from. We have neither. So that thing has been completely, that there's no concern from them. Second of all, I think a lot of people actually missed the memo that it's not a devotional album in any way. And that was one of the actual sort of worries that I had, which is why I kind of tried to make it seem that this is not a religious album. And to be very honest, while I don't regret the album, I think twice now about ever doing it in this format again, because the idea was to just tell the stories as they are. But then if you think of it now, it's like I could have just read the Bible and told the stories, but it would come off as Christian metal. I am the total opposite now, because in India, they are literally killing people in the name of Hindu gods. So for me, I'm actually withdrawing from this desire to even promote like the mythology, because it's messed up right now. The like Hindu extremism has shown its face in the country. So for me, it's like, okay, I might be done with this part of it. But when I was doing it, it was more of a, oh, that's a cool story. The man lion picks up the demon and rips him to shreds on his lap. Wow, that's a Cannibal Corpse song right there, And also, I think without trying to go too deep into the layers of Indian society, I come from a very different, I'm a Sindhi. Basically, most of this Hindu mythology is very vague in my personal culture. Whereas, a Punjabi has a very different connect to his culture. Same with, people from southern parts of India or northern. So for me, I grew up in a Western household, speaking English, eating tuna salad, listening to my mother's BG records and Boney M. Punjabi music is as alien as it would be to a German, probably, because I don't get the Punjabi stuff. For me, that is like, what is this music? It's not something like I grew up with. So I have a very different cultural reference to India. And again, like you mentioned, there's so many nuances to what is really Indian. Like Punjabi is not Indian. It doesn't define India as such, because there's also, Carnatic music from the south. There's also folk music from Assam. The Rajasthani folk music is totally different. But you could say Bollywood has taken the Bhangra and the Punjabi music and sort of given it that global popularity, which is why Northern India is what you would say culturally seen as more of what is representing India. The butter chicken, the tandoori roti, the tandoori chicken, like even food wise, that's the stuff that people first think of. So it's a lot to unpack really in an hour-long convo even. But yeah, that's the kind of reason why certain things, like, why Bloodywood connects with their music the way they do, and they're able to put it out in the way they do, as opposed to the way I approached my subject matter or even the use of the instruments in my music. Much, I guess, very different perspectives.
You're well. I think unpacking is definitely the purpose of World Metal Congress. But you're right. An hour isn't nearly long enough to address all of these questions. But there was one, that I had to ask, because I've always been conscious of, almost like an internal debate, within the scene there, but also, in other places, which is, do you have to, the question is, do you have to play to like a Western idea of what, India is, in the music, whatever else, in order to make an impact? Because, it's just one of those things. You might have grown up with Meshuggah and, 100 other, big bands, whatever else. And so, perhaps you end up, playing like them. And that's the question is, in terms of making an impact in, the Western scene, is there sometimes that feeling that you almost have to, address their expectation in terms of what you're supposed to sound like in order to be from there or whatever else? Because of course, you've probably grown up with, a lot of the same music that, that I have in so many ways. And I guess that's the unique problem, of getting big, because that's the thing about global metal is, in a sense, it's not homogenized. Not everybody sounds exactly the same, but that's because they're creative, not because of where they're from necessarily.
I think yes and no, because I'll tell you why. So you have a great example in Sky Harbor as a band that was able to not do anything Indian and still make a very, become very popular. But there are circumstances behind that popularity, which was, right time, right place, and having, a global band at that point. I remember when they really kind of became big. I think Dan Tompkins from the UK was their singer. Anup from America was playing drums. And then on the other hand, you have a band like Cryptos and Gutslit, who maybe not as popular as, say, a Sky Harbor or a Bloodywood in terms of the numbers, but they are getting more and more popular. They are able to successfully tour Europe and build a fan base. But that's more of a kind of, constantly going out there, playing your music. So you can do that. But I think to reach the success that, say, a Bloodywood has, I think that element is required. And if you look at the bands like, say, Baby Metal, even if you look at, I guess, from Germany, Rammstein, there is that cultural connect, which I think takes a band from that hardworking, able to, fill up reasonable size rooms, to a band that has the potential to sell out arenas. I think that is the difference.
Jayant, what's your take on this? Considering, I mean, on the one hand, yes, when people hear Bloodywood, they recognize familiar things because of Bollywood, perhaps. But at the same time, it's kind of, whoa, sacrilege. Like, what did you do to Bollywood? Like, no one had ever done this before. So what's your take on what we're saying?
We made Bloodywood as like a, I don't know, like an anti-Bollywood thing, because we would like pick up Bollywood tracks and we'll just throw in our metal there and make something, I don't know, at that point, something funny. But the introduction of Indian sound elements in Bloodywood, plus singing in Hindi/Punjabi, it actually came out of curiosity first. And it was the whole concept that we had in our mind was solidified again by Mundiya To Bach Ke Rahe, because that song was in swing, which is generally what a folk count is, like 1 and a 2 and a 3. And it was a new experience for me in terms of singing and growling and swing, and then singing clean vocals, and at the same time Karan playing riffs with a dhol on that. Like, this all was, it's a product of our curiosity at the same time. And then I don't know what he did in the studio when I wasn't there, but he was like, yeah, here is the instrumental. Now tell me, what do you think about it? And as soon as like he played it and I heard it for the first time, I was like, it blew my mind for the first. I was like, and I never do this to my own song. I'm the pessimistic one in Bloodywood. Every time we're working on something, I am the one who's like, yeah, nothing's gonna work. We're gonna fail now. That this is it. This is where it ends. So even this, for me, it was a huge. I was like, wow, this sounds very good. So it was a product of our curiosity, but we consciously didn't put it like, oh, let's just throw some Indian pizzazz and make, like, we weren't expecting that. In our head, there were just two outcomes: either it's gonna work, or it's gonna fail miserably. That was it. But I think it does add, after like this, people, when I see people in Germany or say in England singing the Hindi lyrics, like when I see Caucasian people singing the Hindi lyrics, that's when I feel like, yeah, I mean, the cultural thing did add a lot to the music, and I mean, help people connect to it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I grew up in Lebanon, and I can tell you when the metal scene began in that country, we thought to be metal, you have to just copy everything in the West. And that's it. Like, anything from our culture is out, because that's not metal. And it was only later that it was a case of, actually, with Sepultura, actually, metal can be many different things. It doesn't have to copy one Western formula. So I think there's a lot of room for innovation and mixture in metal.
I see it in this way. See, for me, metal has a different definition altogether, because growing up listening to metal, what I could learn from it was, you be what you want to be. I mean, it does not matter who you are, as long as you're proud of who you are and not like, hiding behind a mask in front of other people and feeling, I don't know, scared or something, to just be yourself. That is what metal was for me. That's why I'm pretty weird because of that, because that's how I've just like, that's how I perceived metal, and it has been a huge part of my life since I was 13. So yeah, I mean, that's why throwing in it actually makes more sense for me to like throwing in your native instruments or like your language, for the same reason, because I mean, it's a part of you. I have grown up not just listening to Punjabi music, but like I come from Uttarakhand, it's a state in India, listening to the cultural folk music from there, and to my father just listening to some old school Bollywood songs. So for me, metal would be just like whatever has made me, whatever I am till date. I'm just gonna throw all of it in and hope for the best.
Can I ask Sahil something? I mean, just Jayant, when you said you were always on edge, like this is where it all ends. Sahil, you've had a few moments like that over the past 20 years, haven't you? And then all of a sudden we have an EP that's going to be released in December. I think that the title is very much of this time, and this too shall pass. So, so what happened? What drove you to make this?
Well, I basically had the longest midlife crisis that anyone has had. But I guess for me, it was just the pandemic and the whole situation in India, especially. Because when this hit, and actually this is the build-up has been that over the last year, the government in India is extremely right. I mean, they've always been right-wing and fascist and lynching people on the basis of religion. And I think it all culminated last year with these mass protests that I was a regular participant in. And I think the government has just been pushing people, since then. And when this pandemic hit, I mean, the amount of people that suffered in India was unreal. Like the thousands of migrant workers stranded across state lines at the same time, while the government should be looking after the people, they are busy going after activists and journalists. And at the same time, the media has become a circus. So like when you see this happening and you realize that you are in your house, you can order a pizza for dinner, you can get groceries delivered at home, you can go to your studio in the afternoon and play drums, and your life is largely unaffected while all this is going around. You better get rid of that midlife crisis and appreciate what you have. That was kind of what really hit me. It's like, I have it so good. I better get over this self-pity that I've been wallowing in for the last few years, because my music didn't become as big as I wanted it to. And just do what you do, because that's what you've dedicated your entire life to. So just shut up and go to the studio and do something. So that's what sort of put me in the mind space to get back to writing music. And I was like, yeah, I want to write about what's going on in the world. And that's how the EP came about.
Absolutely. And the single dropping on October 30 is called The Crumbling Earth. So talking about what's going on in the world. So Jayant, what about you guys? I mean, hey, you were like, yes, this is going well. And all of a sudden this pandemic happened.
This pandemic, it has made me so sad, because we were supposed to have a US tour. All the dates were locked. We were on the verge of announcing the US tour. We were gonna headline the Sophie Lancaster stage on Bloodstock this year. We were supposed to. So that, and then a bunch of festivals in Europe. There was Summer Breeze, Reload Festival. I don't even remember all of them, but like few festivals and a lot of shows. So we had a whole packed tour this year. We were so excited. Nothing's happening, and the tour cancelled. Everything cancelled, and yeah. So, but that actually opened doors for us to. I mean, that's when we realized we were like, no tour is gonna happen. We're not gonna go out of India this year. So this probably is the stage where we start creating, and that's when it just hit us that we need to just work on an album. Maybe that because we've got so much time in hand, we'd rather instead of just being like, oh, no tours, oh, so sad, we'll rather just create a lot of music and just then give it all to the people and see what happens next.
Yeah, well, to paraphrase Jurassic Park, metal finds a way. Yeah, and
yes,
certainly our expectation for World Metal Congress was not that we would be connecting this way, but perhaps in person. But obviously we're so looking forward to the day when we can actually do that again.
Yeah.
But until then, on behalf of everyone at World Metal Congress, on behalf of everyone watching, can I just say, Sahil and Jayant, what an absolute pleasure it's been to have you on. To, I guess, not answer every question, because there are so many, but to frame the best possible ones and to continue the conversation. And we hope that we can have you back again soon to explore these again. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, I have to say, two completely inspiring and lovely people, and I'm not just saying it. I really do hope that we can connect in person someday soon. So what's your take on it all? I mean, the metal scene in India just seems complex and thrilling, and it kind of keeps on giving as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, there's one takeaway that people can kind of go away with after watching today's episode, it's that metal in India is not one thing. It's not one genre. It's very diverse. There's different generations, different experiences, different musical interests and experiences in different regions. It's just so rich. So I hope this is only the beginning, and that it would entice people to find out more about metal in India, and that we get to see these guys live very, very soon, I hope.
Yes, indeed. Well, amen to that. And if you want to find out more about what World Metal Congress does and tune in for future episodes, go to worldmetalcongress.org. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on all the social media, and sign up to our newsletter as well. And we'll be in touch about the next episodes very soon indeed. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you, guys.